guys, this is my first time working with glow-in-the-dark floss. So I figure let's try it out together. And hopefully this won't be a complete disaster. I do have a backup white just in case, but I am really hopeful that this is going to come out well. I'm just sinking my loop start to the back. Oops, did we get it? Okay, I think we got it. So, see how this goes. Now, this is release number 2 for our sweet and spooky stitch along with Sew Sampler. And I am so excited for it. It is so freaking cute. Oops, you know what? I can feel a knot on the back. Let me see if I can fix that. I think it's okay. All right, so I got a little bit of a tail hanging off on the back, which I'm not thrilled about. It just kind of started out with a knot somehow, and this thread it feels like it might be kind of fragile. I don't know, it has kind of like a weird texture to it. It's kind of elasticy. Not exactly though. Think elasticy without having a ton of stretch. If that makes sense. Like worn out elastic. And I'm kind of worried that if I fiddle with it too much, I'm going to break that thread. And it being at the very front, at the very beginning, I could just start over. I could just start over, and that's probably would have been the correct thing to do. But I also don't want to have to rethread this because it was a little bit of it wasn't terrible to thread, but I don't like having to rethread, especially when it's a little bit weird to do so. And this is definitely a little bit weird texture to do so. And it being glow in the dark, I know it's a synthetic thread, so I have a certain apprehension to, licking the end of the thread. That feels so weird to admit that I lick the end of my thread, but I don't know how else you would do it. How else you would get, doesn't everybody lick the end of your thread? I don't know. It sounds gross. It seems like something that you don't talk about. Like people would look at your stuff and think it was dirty if they knew that you licked your thread. It's just the tail end and it gets snipped off anyways, that part, because it's by your needle. But I don't know. There's just part of me that feels like you shouldn't admit to licking your thread. What are your thoughts? Am I crazy? Is that something that you guys, that everybody does, or is it actually frowned upon? I don't know. I'm new enough to embroidery that you could tell me either way and I'd believe you. Because I just don't know. Oh, how silly is that? Oh my gosh. Well, so far this does not seem too bad. My stitches seem to be doing okay. Oh, I gotta find that hole. Where's it at? I'm just gonna come up down here. That'll probably be easier to find. Ah, no. I snagged on something back there. Maybe. Yeah, I snagged on the back of my frame. Okay. There we go. There's definitely a certain feel that you get when you have snagged your thread on the back, when it is knotted or catching on something. I mean, obviously, one way you can tell is your thread being significantly shorter. That would be a giveaway. I'm going to move my needle all the way down so I can straighten out my floss because it looks like it's getting kind of twisted here. There we go. Now that should look better. But you can kind of tell when your floss is snagged on the back due to, oh my gosh, one of my threads got longer. There we go. Due to, it's like it has a certain bounce to it when you come up to the back of your, when you pull your needle through. It has almost like a little bit of cushion feeling on the back side, or a little bit of bounce when it hits, when your needle, your thread hits the canvas, the end of it. Or you'll feel a whole lot of drag, just a lot of tension on it as you're pulling it through. And anytime you feel any of those three things, the bounce or the cushion or the drag, look on the back of your canvas or on the back of your fabric and see if you are snagged, because you probably have a knot or something going on. That's what I've noticed. And that way you can, because I always want to stitch from the front of my frame. I am not one of these people who turn my frame around between stitches, not unless I feel like there's a problem. And it does get me into trouble sometimes. I have definitely acquired knots that way. But I feel like overall I've gotten a lot better about being able to sense when there's a knot based off of those three different feelings. Man, my thread keeps getting caught on the corner of my frame. I think it's because I'm stitching at the side. The camera I've got directly in front of the hoop, and then I'm like off to the side. Like I'm stitching over the shoulder of the camera. I think I said that last week when we were doing our stitching video, but it's true. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm still filming the same way. And it's a little bit challenging, but I'm making it work. It could be worse. I mean, this is easier than what it was when I tried to film without having the frame, or without having the clamps, the table clamps for the frame. Oh my gosh, that was ridiculous. When I tried to do that, I was sitting there trying to hold the hoop or the frame or whatever in, hold the frame in frame while stitching. That was pathetic. It was so bad. I was like, okay, I cannot release that video. I definitely, that is that loose little strand I've got on the back from when I first started, kind of trying to pull up. If that happens, just go to the back, reach to the back with your hand and pull it. Okay, so it looks like one of the issues that I'm having is my floss is wanting to come off, and it's twisting a lot more than what you would typically have. Let's see. I want to bring my needle to the front so I can go back down again because I've got some crazy twisting going on here. And it's making it difficult to keep the thread straight and not, it's like it's causing it to turn all different all different lengths. Not sure what happened there. If you ever get something like that, you can kind of use your needle to see if you can even it out too. What I'm doing is I'm kind of picking up just a little bit of that extra slack that seems to be there with my needle and spacing it out between some of these other things. I don't even know where that slack came from. I'm going to see if I can catch that though in here in this stitch, and maybe this will help tack it down some too. Not the prettiest stitch there, but I think it'll blend in once I get through them. I mean, using the glow-in-the-dark floss, it is definitely more challenging than regular floss. I'll say that. It's not as bad as the metallic though. I tried that one on my own and that one was quite a beast. That was not easy. And definitely not something that you want to do with 2 strands. And my stitching is not very pretty in this. And I think it's all due to this glow-in-the-dark floss. It's like it definitely seems somewhat elastic, so it's like it stretches as you go, but not right when you're going. Ooh, I came up in the wrong spot there. I'm gonna have to rethread this floss. So there's no way I'd be able to stick that needle up through there because it's sharing a hole with another thread. So I'm just going to come to the front and pull it out that way and then rethread my needle. But my ends are getting all disheveled. So I am going to see what I did with my scissors. There they are. And snip these so that I've got a cleaner end to thread. And try and thread this floss without sticking it in my mouth. I don't want to be poisoned by glow-in-the-dark floss. I'm sure it probably won't poison you. I mean, they probably anticipate people sticking it in their mouth, right? You know, saying that that's not some major quilting tab or, you know, stitching taboo. There we go. I think that's the right spot. Much better. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think if I can get some good stitches on this row, that'll help obscure some of those crazy stitches up there. But it's like it is somewhat elasticy, but it doesn't grow as you are like in the area where you're stitching. It grows as you're stitching, but not in the area that you're stitching. It's like it grows further back. So then when you hit that, when you go back and you cross the other leg of your stitches, that's when you notice that it's grown. And at least that's kind of what it seemed like on that row. Hopefully this row will go better and I won't have that problem on this one. We'll see though. See how it pans out, we can make it look good. I'll say that these legs of these stitches are looking pretty decent, so I've got high hopes. I feel like I am running out of floss fairly quickly though. This does not feel like the normal amount that or at least the amount that I was getting out of that black floss. Although that was 2 full strands of floss together as opposed to 1 in half. So obviously I'm going to get a lot more out of it, but it still feels like it's shorter. I had to take a break for a minute because apparently the little ones decided that they were going to get into the water hose and make a mess. And I got that stitch like halfway through. Can I pull that back? Nope, can't do that. All right, so now comes the moment of truth of going back through and crossing our crosses or crissing our crosses. I don't know. Whichever way. Oh, well, that one looks good. I will say I am more confident than ever in my decision to not want to lick this floss. Because just in doing this little bit with it, it's like my fingers have some kind of, feels like they've got some kind of like a powdery or like dry texture to them from touching the floss. I don't know, maybe it's just drying out my fingers. Maybe it's not a residue. Maybe it's just, but if it is some kind of powdery residue, I definitely don't want that in my mouth. That would be very concerning. But yeah, these stitches look like they are laying a lot nicer than those first ones. Or that middle row that I've got there. I think this one's going to help obscure that other row that kind of didn't come out the best. Yeah, I'm liking it so far. And hopefully I'm not annoying you guys doing the railroading of my stitches. That's just kind of how it's how I started out, was to railroad my stitches, and then, I've just gotten used to it. Ooh, I didn't go down in the right spot for that one. Oh, I think it's applied thickly enough there that it won't be an issue. So let's make sure this one goes in the right spot. I think this is probably far more noticeable on camera than it will be in person because I've got you guys zoomed like all the way in. You guys can see this better than I can right now because of how the camera is positioned and it being zoomed all the way in. But I'm doing my best. Oh yeah, I think that row looks a lot better now that we've got this row of stitches laid down. And the more we do, the better, the more obscured that's going to be. I am loving this little design. It is so cute. It looks just like her Spooky and Sweet needle minder, which makes me extra happy that I got the needle minder because that'll be a fun memory of this stitch whenever I decide to use it. probably on all of my Halloween stitching. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is going to work out just fine. I am going to continue doing the rest of my ghost, and I will see you guys again next week, the next part of this. And don't forget, if there are any tutorials or explanations for cross stitch that you'd like me to answer, maybe in the next one, just let me know. And if I don't get to it in the next one, I will make sure that I do a separate video for that to answer your questions. All right, thanks for joining me. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Oh, and I will link Fat Quarter Shop in the description box below. See you next time. Bye.